Um, this is Rumi. Come, come whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving. This is not a caravan of despair. It doesn't matter if you've broken your vows 1,000 times. Still come, and yet again come. Come whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving. This is not a caravan of despair. It doesn't matter if you've broken your vows 1,000 times. Still come, and yet again come. This is Winston Churchill. Success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. Yeah, that was he needed that in World War II for sure. This is Shamsi Tabriz. Why does God come to this world in human form? Because most people do not recognize the worth of gold unless it's been minted into coins. I'll read that again. That's a great metaphor. Why does God come to this world in human form? Because most people do not recognize the worth of gold unless it's been minted into coin. This is Attar, who was one of the great Sufi perfect masters. What is real gratitude? To see the rose even in the thorn of experience. What is real gratitude? To see the rose even in the thorn of experience. And the last one is from Baba. You can own the world without being attached to it, so long as you do not allow yourself to be owned by any part of it. You can own the world without being attached to it, so long as you do not allow yourself to be owned by any part of it. So, anyway, I mean, I kind of didn't give you much forewarning on this for tonight, but I know most of you have been asked to tell your story various times over the last 50 or 40 or 30 years. Anybody want to venture out into the open waters to share their story? Aha! Who we got first? Jaisimha?
Raine.
Oh, good. Raine.
I read your email and I suddenly thought, well, I don't want to tell my long, drawn out story, but I thought of two interlinked, very short stories that are beautiful. I once had several shops, 2 East-West bazaars, and 1 everything and nothing shop. And in the shop, it had pictures of Baba, and always with all the Indian imports from through Meherji and Jal and Roshan and everybody that were employed at Mayer Handcrafts. We had the books and we had the beautiful imported garments, all designed in Australia but then made in India. And the everything and the nothing was different to the East-West bazaars, which were like bazaar shops, like Indian shops, and very appealing to people. But everything and nothing was ultra-modern. And we didn't know how on earth it was going to work because it was also in a very modern, brand new mall arcade in the middle of the city in Brisbane. And I'm sitting there one day, and this lady, who I thought was an old lady, she was probably 40 or 45, in she came and said, every time I pass, I have to stare at that man in the photo. Is he your father? I mean, who is he? And I said, well, No, his name's Meher Baba. And she struggled saying it a couple of times, and finally she said it very sweetly, Meher Baba. In those days, we used to call Baba Meher Baba. And so I said, oh, well, I can give you a pamphlet or a book if you like. Yes, she said, but I'll have to hide it in my bag because my husband wouldn't like it at all. And she left. And as she left, I said, Jai Baba. And she turned round and looked at my hands and then left. 2 days later, I was sort of thinking she'd come back. I sort of felt that energy again to get ready for a Baba story, to get ready to go back to the beginnings of how, in those days, it was quite something to imagine telling people about Baba. We're talking 1974 here in Australia, in the deep north, similar to the deep south. So this very tall, handsome man strode past, and I thought, oh, look at that. He looks like Jal uncle or somebody. And he stopped and he came back to the door and reached his head in the door and said, do you know who's in that photo behind you? And I said, yes, I do. That's Meher Baba. And he said, I met him. And I said, how on earth did you meet him? He said, I was a famous cricket player. I was the most famous cricket player in the Bombay team. And I coach cricket here, but I'm an accountant here in Brisbane now. But one time, when I was very young and first joined the team, Meher Baba and his party came to the cricket match in Bombay. And we won. And it apparently made him very happy. And he came and gave us all a gift. A small, tiny gift, each one of the men on the team. So he said, yes, I met him and I know him. I said, oh, can I give you a pamphlet? And I did, and he left. A week later, back comes the older woman, who's all of 45, I might add. Very sweet, very humble housewife mother. And she said, I have read this book, and in the book I see that this Meher Baba in this picture came here to Queensland. I want to know where he went and how can I find it. So I said, oh, okay. Oh, her name just came back as I looked at Tricia. Okay, Shirley, we're going up on the weekend. If you can come with us, you can come. I can't stay the weekend. I have to think up an excuse to get away. I said, oh, someone will be going back. It was like the 60s. You always just make things up. And someone will be going back. You'll get back, or we'll put you on the train. Meet us on the corner of Queen Street and something or other, and we'll take you up there. And so she was all set up to come. The day after, back came the cricket player. He said, you're not going to believe this, but when I put the pamphlet into my drawer, I remembered where the gift was, and I'd like to give it to you, that Meher Baba gave me after the cricket match. And the whole thing is sort of all muddling and running into each other, So he gave me this little weenie box, and I opened the box, and there, all in old-fashioned yellow cotton wool, was a weeny teeny little carved bone elephant with another elephant in him and another elephant in him, 3 elephants that jiggled. And he said, I'd like you to keep it because I might lose it and you know the meaning of it. And he left. He was a Parsi or Irani, very famous cricket player with a name 300 miles long, Walla something. And anyway, that's the end of my meeting with him, but it's tangled up in Shirley's story because I was in the mood because of both of them to tell people about Baba, which even in that shop, people would come in and go out and pass Baba's picture. They didn't always ask, who is that? So many, many years on a very close friendship with Shirley and giving her rides and sneaking her up to the abode when she could get away, and her buying books and her coming to Baba all on her own and going to India and whatever. Suddenly, a few years ago, I saw an obituary and she had passed. So I wrote a note on the obituary, and her son, whose name is Christopher apparently, and I think I've met him once or twice, said that he was so grateful that I had all those years ago told his mother about Baba, because he's now a Baba lover and he's fascinated by and continuously reading God Speaks.
Wow.
Now, the father, he did, in the end, when Shirley got sick, he brought her to the abode towards the end of her life. I actually met the grumpy husband who was quite sweet about Baba and Francis and me and all of us. Now, how do I know about Christopher and why did this come to mind? The whole muddled story came to mind just this week because Mahu is getting up at 3:30 a.m. and doing Ward's God Speaks course. And in the course, not God Speaks, the new Stay with God course. She mentioned, well, Raine said this happened about this page of Stay with God. And this man says, oh, my name's Christopher. Please give Raine my love, and I'm ever grateful that she told my mother in 1974 about Meher Baba in Brisbane. Jai Baba.
Beautiful. Very touching. Wow. Lovely. Just like Baba. Fantastic. Yeah, and sometime it would be nice to hear your beautiful story, but we'll save that for another time, how you made your way to Avatar's abode. Okay, Rosalie.
Jai Baba.
Yeah.
In 1974, that was post my honeymoon with Baba. I was quite miserable, and I was driving cross country with a couple of people. One was Andrea Winsomer, if you know her. We always used to sing together, but I was so depressed I couldn't even think of the words to songs. So she wondered what was the matter with me. Anyway, so I get to the center searching for some relief from how horrible I felt. And I went to Baba's house, and I was alone in Baba's bedroom, and I knelt at the foot of his bed, and it's the only time I really had an experience. And it was sort of like I inwardly saw Baba and myself on a precipice, a winding precipice that was really, you wouldn't want to drop to the bottom of either side of it. It was like you couldn't even see the bottom. And Baba was young and vibrant and with that beautiful floating walk, and he was pulling me along. He had my forearm and I had his arm, with that hand. And where I was caving in. Every step I took caved in, and he was pulling me along. And I thought, I don't need any other experiences, Baba. That's my story.
Oh, good.
Jai Baba.
Yeah. That reminds me of that bridge when Baba, during the Blue Bus tour, they went across that kind of pontoon bridge, and it was falling apart as they went. Totally destroyed a bridge.
And they were all singing his name. And
Yes.
yeah.
Calling out his name for dear life. Anyone else want to venture and share their coming to Baba, or anything even like Rosalie, some experience that you've had with Baba? It's all, anything that a story with about Baba. Okay, Goer. Well, we can't hear you yet. Yeah,
Oh, there. I'm sorry.
yeah.
No, I was thinking I would love to hear Mayor Prasad's story. I've never heard, I don't know his background. I would love to hear his story. Is he still there?
Ah, yep, there he is.
Okay.
Oh, now he disappeared.
Oh, yeah, he
Hey,
was here a second ago and I was wondering if he was still there. So,
Oh, yeah, my
ah,
story is not that interesting. It's a short one.
okay. Sorry to
but
put
at the same time, though, it was later on that it all became more real for you. So,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
That's right. I was born into a Baba family, of course.
that's
My,
what I was.
yeah, my dad came to know about Baba just before my birth, and he found out about Baba, I think, a few months before I was born. So somebody suggested that they name me as Meher Prasad, and that's how they named me as with this name. And then when I was 2 years, Baba dropped his body, and they went to the Baba's interment. And my mom tells me this all the time, again and again and again, that I cried so much at the tomb that they had to take me and make me put a flower at his feet. So I must have seen his face when he was lying in the crypt. And during all the time that I was growing up, I was always in the Baba community, listening to Adi speech and all the other speeches and all, but I never really had that internal connection with Baba. I definitely took him as God without a doubt, but I didn't really have the inner connection until 1993 when I was 26. We went to Mehrabad once, and this was soon after my grandfather passed away, and I was thinking about that, and we went to Mehrabad during Christmas time, and this was the time that during Christmas money would typically give out the candies and with the slip as Baba's Prasad. And we were standing in line, and when my turn came, she gave me a candy and this little slip that said, Baba's quote that said, "I want you to make me yours as you already eternally are mine."
Beautiful.
And that quote really took me completely to him, because until then I just kept him away from me as if he's like some deity that needs to be worshipped, or somebody that is away from me. And when I read that quote, it was really as if it came directly from Baba to me, and that was the start of my
Repeat it.
journey to him.
Can you repeat the quote, Mayor Prasad?
I want you to make me yours as you already eternally are mine.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Is there anything you can say about any kind of experiences along the way after that kind of, as this companionship kind of started to flower? Anything that comes to mind?
In the first few years of my honeymoon with him, there was 2-3 years of my honeymoon. There were these couplets that started to pour into me, and I would write them down without knowing the language myself. So this would come typically in Urdu or Hindi and Urdu combination, and I think there must have been 500 or 600 of those that I had written down. But they still come once in a while. But that is one thing that I can share, is that many of those are really quite profound. Obviously, they are not from me directly, so that's why they are profound. Otherwise, they would be.
So in other words, they were coming in a language that you didn't even know, right?
Yeah, I didn't know how to read or write, so I had to write them in English. because I didn't
phonetically.
know the script of the language, and some of them actually the meanings also I had to look up, and sometimes I would wake up at 3 a.m. and write them down. Sometimes from 4 or 5 at a time, and yeah, that was.
Do you have any handy there that you can read, or any that you can remember? I mean,
So the first one I
translating it.
remember very well because
Huh?
I was around 27 at that time when I first wrote this. It goes like 27 साल गुजार दी औरों की कमी गिनते गिनते 27 लाख जन्म गुजार लेंगे तेरे नाम सुनते सुनते. It means that 27 years I have passed looking at others' faults. I will spend 27 lakhs of lives listening to your name from my lips.
Beautiful.
Then the other one I remember is also a short one that says, Teri zikr, meri fikr. Means that your remembrance is my worry.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Mayor Prasad, who were your parents?
M.R.K. Sharma and Vijay Lakshmi.
Okay.
They're from Hyderabad.
Oh, okay. Hyderabad.
Goer, could you understand his Urdu?
Somewhat, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've lost touch with a lot of it, but it still comes back from time to time. Yeah, and
Yeah.
by and large, I can get the gist of it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So Shimi, do they know Urdu? Shailaja and Jaisimha, do they know Urdu?
Yeah, we do understand.
Oh, you don't know. Oh, I thought maybe you were.
No, we do understand.
We understand, but
Yeah,
not.
we are from Hyderabad. Actually, Meher Prasad's dad and my dad,
Oh.
yeah, they were actually quite good friends.
Oh.
In sense, my father used to take to their house quite often, and he used to make us ask some questions on Baba to him, and he used to explain us. Yeah.
Lovely.
Oh,
Nice.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
That's
See?
beautiful.
And they both were good speakers. My dad and Meher Prasad dad. My dad's favorite subjects used to be about the mass, and Meher Prasad's father used to speak on Mandali, about Mandali stories. Both used to have these talks.
Did your father meet Baba?
No, he didn't.
No.
He was about to meet. I mean, for the 69th darshan, they planned everything. They booked tickets, but when they heard Baba dropped his body, they canceled the trip. Yes.
Thank you.
Meher
Yeah.
Prasad. Meher Prasad, did all these come in Urdu or what?
Yeah, for the most part, it's a mix of Urdu and Hindi. Yeah.
Ah,
I have to type them up someday, but yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Dyan.
Well, actually, I kind of like what Go Hair just did. She called on somebody to hear their story, and I was wondering if we could continue that, and people could either say pass or not. But I, believe it or not, when I thought of this, I wanted to ask about Jaisimha and Shailaja's story. So the fact that he's already started it, I'm wondering if we could hear more, because I hang with you so much on these 2x2 squares, and I don't know how you came to Baba.
Go for it.
So mine is like, I'm again born Baba lover, because my father was Baba lover since 1968. But I can tell his story and how he became a Baba lover. So in Hyderabad, where he used to live, there were all people of all religions, like Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and he had friends like Christian friends and Hindu friends. So I mean, he and his uncle used to talk on the subject of spirituality. And my father used to tell, if there is anything, I mean, if there is God, and so it should be, I mean, all religions should be equal. Something in that terms, he had that, and there should be even the literature, whatever about his literature should be in English. So those were his two requirements. So once his uncle went to an exhibition in Hyderabad, where every year they set up a Meher Baba stall in that exhibition. So his uncle saw the Baba's quote there. I have no religion, all religions belongs to me. Love is my religion. So he saw that and came to my dad and told, so I think you like this, we can go there once and see what is that. So my father went there, and I think he met again, like Prakash's grandfather. He used to do that. I mean, he has that stall in that exhibition of. So he met him and other Baba lovers, and gradually was regularly attending Baba programs, and he became Baba lover like that. I mean, I don't think any special experiences he had, but it was very gradual. That's how it was.
So you were raised then with Baba since you were born.
Born, yeah.
And your mother also, did she follow Baba?
Yeah, and it happens to be like when my father got engaged to my mother, at the same time he got to know about Baba.
Oh.
So my mother also has when she got married, she also had full faith in Baba, and they both visited for the first time Paterniti. So it seems like she met Manija, and Manija seems to have told, like, my mother was pregnant, so she told it will be a boy. So it was my elder brother. That.
Wow.
Now, Jaisimha, now you grew up, and you inherited, this dedication and knowing of Baba, but was it kind of a little bit like Mayor Prasad? He was God, but then at some point did it become more personal and a companionship?
Yeah, it did happen. Like, so when I was going to college, in sense, preparing for going into engineering college, I was like a little bit disappointed because I was not sure of getting into the college I want. So that time, like, my father and we visited Mehrabad. It was Amartiti, I guess. So my dad took me to Balnatu and just had a chat about Baba. He just told what I was going through. And Balnatu just told one thing, like, when you go to Samadhi, you just remember him. That's all he told. So I went to Samadhi and took darshan, and I just remembered him. But nothing happened at that time. But after coming home, like, I was more into Baba, in sense I was reading all the books that were in my house about Baba. So it became more, personal account, I can say, like more personal relationship with Baba.
Did you get into the college you wanted to get into?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Now, Jace, now Shailaja, she heard of Baba from you, right?
Right. Yeah. From marrying the Jaisimha, I came to know about Baba.
And what did you think at first?
Yeah, I started liking him. So after our engagement, like my father-in-law gave me the prayer book. So I started reading these prayers, and I really got connected. I felt like I liked the words, everything. I started learning the prayer. So, and then I liked the Baba face. When I saw, I really liked it. Like, yes, this is like, this is the God. Then I was very happy. Then I wanted to learn more about Baba, and then going to Baba centers and attending the programs. Then I started giving to Baba, and I'm loving. Yeah.
When you were going to the programs in Hyderabad
Yeah.
first, and
Yeah.
then would you go to Mehrabad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mehrabad. Yeah. I felt really very good after marriage. So it was really wonderful. I felt like Baba. Then after that, it's like from there to here, it's all Baba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of got caught in the net.
Yeah.
Caught
Thanking
in
Baba for everything.
the web,
Right.
the World Wide Web.
Right. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to venture out?
I'll share a little small anecdote from my kids. You know, my older son is now 17 years, but when he was 14, some of his friends came over for a sleepover at our house, and they looked at Baba's picture, and then they asked my son who he was, and this happened a little bit later, but so my son told them that he is my grandfather, because he didn't know what to say, so he just told them he's my grandfather. And these kids, they didn't believe that. They actually went back to their home. They searched up and they told him the next day, that's not your grandfather. That's a person called Meher Baba. But the thing is that something triggered in them not to that he's something special. And because his name, my son's name is Meherwan, so they must have searched up Meherwan grandfather or something, and Baba's picture must have come up. So that's how they figured.
And they must, and way you said grandfather, it must have conveyed a little bit more than just a grandfather.
Yeah.
They suspected something. So yeah, Raine.
So as it would happen, just as it would happen, as I glanced at Trisha, I remembered Shirley's name, Shirley Gillen, Gillen, Shirley Gillen. So with that, I could easily go to my phone and type in Chris Gillen, her son, and what should come up? Dear Avatars Abode Committee, you may not know me. My mother is Shirley Gillen, and she passed away yesterday just after midnight in her retirement hostel home in Alice Springs that she had moved to. She was aged 92. She was surrounded by photos of Baba and a quote on a little blue card, the everything and the nothing beside her bed, which the nurse had thoughtfully put there and sometimes read to her. A rose arrived, also. When you entrust your mind to me, by constantly remembering me, there are no thoughts left which the mind can feed. This fasting is the true and essential fasting. I smiled when I saw it there, knowing that all the staff would be reading it every time they went in, and these words by Meher Baba. Shirley found Baba, you know, in the early 70s in a shop, a Meher handcraft shop, and she picked up a book and she took it home, and she was so impressed with the teachings that she went straight back to the shop, and she was invited by Raine to come to Avatar's abode. She quickly joined the Baba scene in Queensland and Sydney, and India. She became friends with Joni LePage and Judith Garbutt, Ina Lemon, Grace Swan, Joanna Bruford, John Grant, Roy and Ros Hayes. It was magic today going through her belongings, packing up her room and discovering unbelievable treasures. A locket given to her by Mara with Baba's hair, the tiniest photo of Baba inside, and beautiful letters to her from both Mani and Mara, and photos of her many, many adventures when going to India and whilst going around Australia meeting Baba lovers. She in the end had lost most of her short-term memory, but she could still remember the names of the Baba lovers and her loved ones in India. She kept a photo of Joanna Bruford close beside her bed before she passed. Shirley wished to be cremated, and she died on July 4th, 2019, and was cremated Thursday, 11th July, the day after Silence Day. Can you believe it? If it is okay with the trust, could you please distribute this and make sure Raine gets a copy? And so I answered him, and he said, yes, it's me, and the story's pretty accurate, and I think the book was The Everything and Nothing in a pamphlet, and that's how she came to the abode. And he said, so glad to hear from you, Raine, and thank you for your kind reply and a little clarification of the histories. The whole family is so grateful to you for being in Baba's fold all these years. J. Baba, Shirley's son, Chris.
Beautiful. Wow. It's just...
It takes a tribe to get the whole story together. I actually had not thought of this story in such a long time till Mahu brought up Chris's name yesterday. And now we all know the story. Go Shirley! She's probably with Baba.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah. Hey,
Can
well...
you read Baba's words again, Raine? In that letter.
Baba's words. Oh, yes, weren't they wonderful? I arrived and there beside her bed. There. When you entrust your mind to me by constantly remembering me, there are no thoughts left which the mind can feed. This fasting is the true and essential fasting.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's if someone asked whether Baba believed in fasting, that would be a great answer. Hey, well, I'm just going to ask somebody, and you can always pass or save it for another time. But Marian, any chance that you could share?
Well, I think my story is a little too long. Obviously, maybe I could shorten it, but I was thinking about this today, if I should share or not. I'm writing a book. It's very hard, as you all know. I think everybody knows that. It's hard to write about things that have no words, and bring them into words. But I could share maybe one thing about that.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Because I came to Baba I had a spiritual awakening, which I'm writing about. That would be a whole nother story, in October 1966. And then I knew I had an awakening. I knew there was who I was and so forth. And then but I didn't know about Baba. And so I had to keep a lot to myself, because I lived in New York City with a lot of intellectual people, and nobody was on a spiritual path. And so I kept everything to myself of the spiritual awakening, until I met a woman who was my daughter's little playgroup teacher. And we used to talk at night on the phone. And we both very carefully, one night I said, I believe in God. And she said, oh, I do too. And then I very cautiously said, oh, I pray. She said, oh, I do too. You'd think it was never heard of before, but that was sort of intellectual New York, And so we then shared a lot. And so I'm not going to tell the whole story, but this was really so beautiful that right about that time, because I came to Baba in October 68, that was 2 years after my awakening. And so, but this time I met this woman, we became good friends, is when Sri Bhaktivedanta brought the Krishna consciousness people over to New York City. And they took over a storefront down on the Lower East Side and would have Sunday love feast. You sit on the floor. They just took over. A lot of places were abandoned down there in those days. And so they just took part of it over. And so this friend came and says, oh, she heard about these people, because we were on a search together, spiritual search for something. And so we would go down there. And I had the experience of Krishna first. We would chant the Hare Krishna with the Krishna consciousness people who were there leading us. And I just had this whole knowing, the whole experience of Krishna. It has never left me. And so it was so beautiful. And then I heard inside that voice that comes out of the silence. It didn't say you, Marian. It said, this is not my path in this life. Because usually that voice will say, I would think, this is not your path in this life. This is not my path in this life. And it was that voice out of the silence. So I knew it wasn't, but that never left me, that love with Krishna. And so then moving forward a little bit, I meet a couple in a health food store. We didn't have many health food stores back then. And it's a couple that no longer married, but they are Baba followers. And one has passed on, and the man had a little button, and I was talking about Krishna and he was talking about something. And I looked at this button. It was a Baba button, but I'd never seen anything like that before, a little button on his lapel. And I said, who's that? And he said, he didn't say Mayor Baba. He said, it's God in human form. And I thought, well, okay, he's entitled. If somebody says they're God in human form, they're entitled to say that. Who am I to say? So I said, oh, okay. So then he said, we have Monday night meetings. That's when their Monday night meetings were all over the earth. And so would you like to come? Well, I was separated from my husband with a little baby and a young girl, and I hardly ever went out. And so my ex-husband came over, and he always wanted if he could put the kids to bed sometimes if I ever went out. Well, I never went out. And so I asked him if he would do that. And I go to the Monday night meeting. And there's this couple sitting there waiting, holding a chair for me. And I come in, and that's when, so I'm not going to go into a long explanation because we've all have our own experiences, and I'm attempting to write about it. When I walked into the room and saw Baba's picture there, and Fred and Ella were running the meeting, and I had this seat, and I see Baba's picture with a garland on it. And that's when it happened, and the room turned into light. And I know you've talked, Jeff, about 57th Street, I think. Yeah. and so this is when there was nothing else but, Baba and me and the heart and whatever, beyond description. And so I knew, and what I'd been doing, because that woman that I'd met, who was my daughter's playgroup teacher, she had given me, from our sharing, the Yogananda book, Autobiography of a Yogi. That's what started my prayer to meet my master, because of Yogananda meeting Sri Yukteswar. And I realized I need a master since I'm back being Marian, I got to go through all those planes again, and with the hand of the master, and go through that consciously. So I had that experience before I went to 57th Street. And so that's when I used to put my kids to bed at night and sit there and pray to meet my master, And then I thought I was going to have to go out to California, do Kriya Yoga with, the Kriya Yoga people out there, and sit in Samadhi 8 hours a day and get a babysitter. And I had no money of my own. I was just newly separated from the man who took care of me. So here I am, 57th Street. I didn't have to go out to California, sit in Kriya Yoga, for 8 hours a day, and met my master. And that was it. So I'll leave all the other details out. But that night, the 69 Darshan was announced, and I signed up for it, for me and 2 little kids to go. So I'll end with that.
Yeah, so. Beautiful. In one of these recent books on Guru Prasad, there are 2 that came out, one by Balnatu and one by Dr. Barucha. Baba focused on those Monday night meetings.
Yeah.
From India.
Yes.
So they were very powerful.
Very powerful.
Had his nazar on them.
Yeah.
Marian, I just need to know, final cliffhanger. Did you go to India with the 2 kids?
No,
Oh, okay.
Baba sent a directive that children under 7 could not come because they could get sick and keep the parents from having darshan, and to know that these children would receive darshan.
Thank you.
So I prepared, so they stayed, and I had their schedule being taken care of every moment while I was gone.
Oh, you
So
went to India by yourself?
I went to India by myself.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful. Okay.
We'll get that sometime at
Yeah.
some point. So taking the liberty of, what about Tony? Is this a good time for you to share your coming with Baba, or do you want to? We'll have other times, other evenings as well.
I can share something now. Like Marian, I'm writing something, and the story itself is way too long. I'm writing in like screenplay form, in story form, and it's a new thing for me. But I've been feeling Baba pushing me towards that for decades, and I finally actually got started in the last few months.
Let me ask 1 second. Can all of you hear Tony all right?
It's kind of low.
Yeah, it's strange.
It's a little low. Yeah.
Is that better now?
Perfect.
Okay, I have to. For some reason, I have to be right on top of the
Okay.
low there.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, and I'll just say, I didn't come to Baba. Baba came to me. I guess that's the first thing. Baba came to me. The flashy story, which is part of the bigger story, was on January 31st, 1969, at 1:45 a.m. in New York, which was 12:15 in India when Baba dropped his body. I had an experience. I was 16, 15 and a half, something like that. And it was from then on. Actually, because I do astrology, I had drawn up a chart for something that happened the next day. That's how I know the date. But I told people that year that my life began, for all intents and purposes, on February 1st, 1969, and it was because of this experience. It was I can't really describe it because it's the essence of the story, and I don't want to give spoilers out. It's but there was a word spoken at the end, and which I came to know later was Baba's voice, and it sent me on a quest. But in writing it, which is very difficult to get the distance enough and the self-honesty to write a story like that about one's own experience. What I saw was I was 9. When I was 7, my father got lung cancer, and up until that point, we had a very lively house, and he was a musician, and we'd have friends and neighbors, and he'd have everyone singing, and it was a very friendly place to be. My mom was very religious, but not in a crazy way. She was a Catholic and went to church, and she was in the choir when she was in her 30s, and there was a lot of singing and music, and I went to catechism and all that. I had some experience. Well, but then my father died. When I was 9, he died, and the whole family, his part of the family, split off. It's a story. But it left me at 9 really aware that something was amiss, in the way the adults were behaving, in what had happened. I would say I was, from that point on, really trying to make sense of things. And let's see. When I got my confirmation, and I see old photos, I looked really grim for a few years. But when I had my confirmation, the bishop is supposed to slap you across the face, and the Holy Spirit descends on you. And I knew all the things by rote, kind of, but when I actually had my confirmation, it was like, whew, something really happened. And I told my mother. I got home and I said, "Ma, something." She said, "Well, something's supposed to happen." She didn't get it, At some point I got involved in saying the Rosary, which is it's a very profound meditation, Catholic prayer. And what you do is, for each group of 10, you pick a scene. They have scenes to pick from Jesus' life. And you meditate on them. You picture them. You picture yourself in the scene during his crucifixion, at a time of his birth, and all these different stories. And I felt, and it was real. For me, it was very real. And I didn't know I was creating a deep inner connection. But something came up when I was maybe 15 that was very troubling to me. And it's too much to go into details. But it was very disturbing, and it was disturbing on a personal level, and because it might involve me doing, caught up in things that God would not want me to do. I don't, again, I'm being a little vague, but that was the gist of it. And so I said a prayer that night. I just kind of went straight to that place I knew from when I said the Rosary. So it was like, I said, you can't let this happen. And I explained why, and I got no satisfaction. And then I had the thought came, this is something you have to go through. And I accepted that. I got it. And I said, but it involves me being in a situation that, to my understanding, you don't want me to be in. And so can't you just arrange it so it doesn't happen that way? I'm willing to go through everything I have to go through, but not so that I'm not doing this thing that you don't want. And I suddenly had a very peaceful feeling. Now I would say it's as if Baba said, okay, granted, now go to sleep, forget about it. And so that experience that I had when Baba dropped his body related, I didn't know this till 10 years later. I didn't put it all together, related to that prayer. And it set a course of, it set up a course of events, well, that I have to write it because it's twists and turns, and it's kind of dazzling with Baba's involvement. There was a clue, there was a word, I had to find what this word meant, and 10 years later, Baba revealed what that word meant, and it was the answer to a crisis I was in 10 years later. I know it's a big tease to dangle all these things, but it's such a, it's that kind of story it is, which is why I know I have to write it. I would say, just in terms of coming to Baba, I was on that quest from that experience for a year, a little over a year, until I reached a point where I had done everything I could to fulfill this particular quest unsuccessfully, and I had to just give up. And it was like I would still be aware, I would be looking to see if I could fulfill this quest, but I knew there was nothing else I could do. And almost immediately I came across a poster for at Queens College, a blue pencil sketch of Baba. It said, Avatar Mayor Baba, public birthday celebration, Barbizon Plaza. And I set about trying to find it. And I thought, it's like Queensboro Plaza, Kings Plaza in Brooklyn. It's a big, concourse. It's actually a hotel where Narina Machabelli gave some of her talks. But my whole quest of that previous year got wrapped up in trying to find this. I had no idea who Baba was, but I thought it would be where the real peace and love hippies were going to be. I always kind of wanted to connect with the real peace and love hippies, and I thought it was probably going to be a wine and cheese thing. The day came and went, I missed it. And it was 7 o'clock on Sunday when the theme music from Lassie came on, and I knew it was over. It was that day, and it was over. And it was so poignant for me, and I completely gave up. And the next day, or I think it was the day after, Tuesday, I went to school, and there was a underground university bulletin came out. In these kind of like hippie kind of days, The school, if they had an empty classrooms, they would let students teach classes on things they were good at. Basket weaving or painting or current events things. And there was one on Eastern philosophy and mysticism. And I had been studying that as part of my quest. So I went, and a girl who was hanging around with me at the time came with me. And this fellow was sitting cross-legged, and I'm going to end the story here because it's really just the beginning of the story. But he's sitting cross-legged behind a lectern, and he's got long blondish hair, and I'm pretty sure he was wearing Roger McGuinn glasses, and he had a silly kind of a grin. And on the front of the podium, I didn't notice it. It was like it was veiled at first, was the big "Don't Worry, Be Happy" card. But I'm sitting there waiting for the thing to start. And finally he says, usually I give these talks on some aspect of Eastern philosophy or mysticism. But today I want to share with you the amazing experience I had this weekend when I attended the public birthday celebration for Avatar Mayor Baba at the Barbizon Plaza. And Baba just exploded out of the picture with a big smile like that. Wasn't that good? I mean, I recognized him immediately. I knew he was Baba, he was God in you, he was the Christ. I knew him. And it was like, wasn't that good? Wasn't that good? And so he talked a bit about Baba, but mainly it was Baba and me for that whole class session. And I went home. My mother was washing the dishes, and I walked in. I said, you know, Jesus that you've been going to church for all these years, he's been here for the last 75 years. And she said, oh, okay, sure. And then I went out, and a fellow I knew, who I had actually once seen wearing a Baba button, but I didn't register it. That was a year earlier, and I didn't know. But I'm telling him about Baba, and he's going, oh, yeah, okay, he's listening. Next thing you know, for the first time ever, I'm at his apartment. He's an older guy, a little bit. And he goes into his bedroom, and he comes out, and he hands me God Speaks and this wonderful photo of Baba, kind of like that one, if you can see it there. But it was pocket-sized and glossy and alive. And I spent a lot of time with that photo. I began reading God Speaks that first night, Don Stevens' introduction. And someone challenged me a few days later, because I'm telling everybody at school, and someone at school in a sorority said, oh, I know him, he's the Antichrist. And I went, no, oh yeah, he's the Antichrist. And I said, Baba, I know who you are, but you've got to do something about this so I don't have this worm in my brain. And I tried to get Baba in my bedroom, I tried to get Baba to appear to me as Jesus, to tell me he was Baba. And it was so forced and faked and phony, and it was like, no, okay, fine. But Baba, you have to give me something so that won't stick. Because I know who you are, but I also know how the mind works. Went to bed that night, and before I woke up, I had an experience. I was like lifted, but I wasn't physical. It was a non-corporeal thing. It was in light. It's one of those things you can't really explain. But I knew this was Baba's presence, and I knew with no doubt whatsoever that Baba had the conviction of what I already knew, that Baba was indeed God in human form. In the next 8 years, the story that was planted with that experience on when Baba dropped his body played out, and it's this whole story. But you see, this synopsis is just so long, so you can imagine what it would take to tell the rest. So that's where I'll stop.
Beautiful, Tony. Wow. Great. Wow. Lovely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else want to venture out into the open waters? Otherwise, I might just ask somebody.
We would like to hear about Dyan and Terri.
That's funny. I literally just said to her, you want to do it? You want to dive into the deep end?
I was just about to ask for you too. So please.
Well, it starts with Terri, so everything starts with Terri in my book.
Do y'all know Seppi? She's a British woman with a gorgeous accent. Well,
Right.
she lived around the corner from us in those days, and our children went to preschool together. And Seppi and I just really connected on a spirit level. There was no Baba involved at that time. I was a goddess person into the Mother Earth and that kind of stuff. And but we definitely had this spirit connection. And then her parents started ailing, so she moved back to England to be with them and to help them drop their bodies. And she met this woman in Glastonbury who was a Baba lover. And it just clicked for Seppi, and that was it. And we would always say Seppi and her Baba, Seppi and her Baba. And our child would always say, that's Seppi and that Baba, but it was like it belonged, Baba belonged to Seppi. It had nothing to do with us. We had, different ways in our spirit. And both Dyan and I are Jewish, but we weren't really religious. We were more traditional. And we would do, different holidays. We'd do the holidays and stuff, but.
And the food.
The food. Food's good. So now Seppi lived in England. She was with Baba. I went there, and then she came here with her 2 children and her husband. They were sitting right on the sofa, right here, where you see us. And Seppi pulled from her bag a stack of Baba pictures. And she said to me, take a picture that you like. And I'm thinking, well, this is Seppi and her Baba. This has nothing to do with me, but I wasn't gonna make a deal of it. So I went through them, and I love flowers and foliage. So I took one where Baba was in foliage and flowers, and I put it on the dining room table. And I don't know how this happened, I'm being honest, but somehow the picture told me it needed to be in a frame. And I thought to myself, I can put it in a frame, but like my kid's gonna go, why is Baba in a frame in our house? And Dyan's not gonna understand why Baba's in a frame. But for some reason, I couldn't help myself. I went to the store and I put Baba in the frame. It's still in the same frame in the same place. I'll show it to you.
We don't have a big estate, so this will only take a second.
Yeah.
That double wide.
Can you
Ooh,
see? Oh, there can you see it?
yeah, beautiful.
Isn't it beautiful?
And a lovely frame.
Yeah,
Beautiful,
real
beautiful,
beautiful.
beautiful, beautiful.
Just gorgeous. So so now he's in a frame on my table. And it was still Seppi and her Baba. It had nothing to do with me. But before
But that's not a frame that you just stick a picture in. That's an elaborate, super frame.
Baba guided me to the frame too. So now I'm sitting at the desk in the kitchen on the computer, and I put in Mayor Baba, thinking that I'll just at least know if he's going to be sitting on my table in the dining room. I should at least know a little bit about him. So I'm sitting at the desk, and I'm starting to read stuff about him. And before I knew it, I said to Dyan, I just want to know more. And there's a center here in town. And would you go with me? There's a bookstore there, and I'll go get some books, and then I can read different things. Dyan said yes. And we go to the center. It was closed. But I don't know.
Somebody was there.
David Israel was there and opened the gate for us and let us go in and look at the books and buy what we wanted to. And I go home, and I'm just going second by second. I'm getting deeper and deeper. And like when Tony said that Baba took him, Baba took me. I had nothing to do with this whatsoever. It was like I was guided. So now I don't know where this came from, but I wake up one morning and I go, Di, and she says, yeah. I said, I have to go to India. She said, what do you mean you have to go to India?
No, I think I said shit first.
Yeah, she said shit. This was not on her bucket list at all. And I said, you don't have to go with me. I have gone places without her that didn't have, like, well, in China, didn't have the right bathrooms and the right food and stuff. And so I said, you know, you don't have to go with me, honey. I know I'll find a way to go. I just knew I would. And she said, you're not going to have a big experience like that without me to witness it. And she'll tell you her portion of it. And so we got on, we started getting involved in making the plans to go to India. And Seppi, of course, had all these things we had to do there and see. And, you know, half the people weren't there. And instead of meeting them, we met other people. And it was glorious in a different way. And we had, so Dyan said, well, if I'm going to go all the way to India to watch you have this, you know, this awakening or whatever you're going through, she said, I want to do sightseeing. I said, all right, we'll go and we'll sightsee. And I'm just yearning to be at that samadhi, you know, I just can't wait. But I'm looking at the Taj Mahal and I'm going to different places and it's all gorgeous. It's beautiful, but I couldn't wait. And then we're finally in the car on our way, you know, and so it was Baba's birthday, but I didn't want to go on his birthday. I'm not big into crowds unless they're on these little screens. And and I feel like I can't really explain it, but it would have been too much for me. And so we went to Pune the day before his birthday, and we had an amazing time there. And Dyan can share some stuff, but then the next day, and still there were a zillion people at, you know, it was Baba's birthday. There were a zillion, you know, it was a whole lot of people from California, and they knew, you know, everyone knows everybody else, and they find you. And it was a family, really. It was a family from the jump for me anyway. And then Dyan, you start now.
So, I wasn't into it at all. And in fact, I said, what are we going to do for 5 days without internet? And Terri said, the worst that will happen is that we can take walks holding hands to each other and reading.
To each other.
So I said, okay. And so when we get there, nobody was in the reservation area. And so we're just sitting there and we're waiting. And after about 15 minutes, 3 people walk in, all women. They're different generations, literally. If you could see a dark cloud around human beings, there was acid rain cloud around these 3 people. Their energy was so down. And cut to the chase, it was a mother, a daughter, and then
a wife of a man that passed away.
So
dropped his body.
So the son, the brother, and the husband had just died, and they had been in Bombay and listened to Nan Umberger talk. And what was really interesting was that was the first book I ever read, Baba book, here in LA, was that one. So now the first person they reference is her, and she had told them to come to the samadhi. So they just did as they were told. So our first experience was, here we are at this what we thought was this joyous place, and this incredibly dark cloud came in. And then throughout our stay there, we kept kind of, the next 24 hours, we ran into them, which was really interesting. But
that's another story.
We would get up every morning and go to the samadhi for arti, and later in the afternoon. And when we tell people our whole 5-day story, they can't believe what we did in 5 days. It was like a month's worth. But we got to see Bao, got to have court with Bao, and
We had time with Nash.
yeah, Nashwan. We had time with Amrit. Bill
Dada.
Cliff was our angel from heaven who guided us through our entire stay. But we were there about 2 days, and at breakfast one morning, somebody said, "Hey, I saw you down at the Samadhi." Well, this room, if anybody would know this, said, "What do you mean you saw me at the Samadhi? I was just one of everybody else in line." And then at lunchtime, somebody smiled at me and said, "I saw you at the Samadhi." Again, it went. Finally, when the third person said, I stopped and I said, "What do you mean you saw me at the Samadhi?" And they said, "You're glowing." And I walked over to a mirror and I wasn't recognizable to myself. I was this cerebral lefty. I was in my feelings, but that was not my default. And I listened to news all the time. And I did spirits. I was not an organic spiritual seeker. That was Terri, and I went along for the ride. And that's what I did here is I think that's when couples can really grow apart, is when one has a spiritual experience that the other is not part of at all. So I didn't want her writing me a postcard about it or coming home and telling me about it. I wanted to experience it with her, never thinking for a moment I would buy into anything. Because I even remember saying to her, we get into Mumbai at 6 p.m. and we don't take off until 3 a.m. What do we do during all that time? And what ended up happening was when we left that day, everybody with whom we had grown close to was leaving at that same time. And where were they going? They were going to the Leela Hotel. And that's who we spent our 8 hours with. But it was that kind of thing. There was coincidence after, we call them coincidences because we can't explain them. And we came home and I didn't know what to do with all this. So I kept saying, let's go down to the center, because I didn't know what to do with it. Terri kept reading and reading, but I'm not a great reader. And, but I just kept showing up and acting as if I just needed to hear stories. So when the pandemic hit and Marta turned me on to Baba Zoom, it changed my life. So we had gone to India back in 2013, but Baba, even though throughout those years, I would ask Baba to join me, it wasn't all consuming. He was a part of my life, but not a front and center until the Baba Zoom. And I show up a lot for the same reason why we have pictures of him all around, much to our child's chagrin, is to remember him. So now what's really weird is when I wake up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, the numerous times I do, where I used to think about work or some obsessive quality, Baba songs are going through my head. It is like remarkable. And my appetite is still voracious. So I think that was about it.
Beautiful. Wonderful. There's a lovely line someone wrote. I can't remember who it was, but they said, coincidences are God's way of performing miracles anonymously. You can take them either way. No, lovely.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
see.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was
Terri,
beautiful.
Dyan.
I'm going to add one thing. You know, Dyan and I, as of a couple of weeks ago, have been together for 33 years. And the other piece is that we have this brand new love affair with Baba together. It just I can't even explain it. It's made our relationship so different, wonderfully different, but very different. And you think after, you've been together so long, it's the same thing every day. You love each other and you can laugh together and enjoy each other. But with Baba there, oh my God, it's like golden as far as I'm concerned. And only we know that. I mean, we can tell you, but we know what we went. I mean, it's like, it's magic, it's Baba's magic.
Yeah.
And Dyan, that glow hasn't left you yet.
That's right. I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Let's have one more, and then
How about Prakash? I don't know his story. Am I putting too many people on the spot?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I shared way back, but yeah, I mean, most of the stories like Prasad and Jaisimha shared, it may sound the same, but I slid into a Baba family myself way back. It starts with my grandfather, who became Baba follower from 1958, when he volunteered to do work at Mehrabad, when they needed people to volunteer who can understand Hindi and Telugu, because there are a bunch of people coming from Andhra who can't speak Hindi and they needed help. My grandfather was originally a Ramakrishna follower, but he saw an ad in the paper saying that they needed volunteers to do this service of translation. So he goes there. He says, well, I may not follow Meher Baba, but doesn't matter. I can always help. So he goes there with his daughter, who's 7 years old, my aunt, with him. And he does his work and volunteering and all. At the end of the, the Sahavas. During this particular time, he meets a lot of his old friends from Andhra who came to have Baba's darshan. And and they say, you're here in Ahmednagar. At the time, my grandfather was posted in Ahmednagar. And you don't know Meher Baba? Then he says, well, I don't need him because I have Ramakrishna. And then they keep teasing him about that. Being so close to Meher Baba, and yet you haven't seen him. But anyway, he does his volunteer work and helps out in whatever way he could. And then at the end of the Sahavas, Baba gives darshan to everybody. And he gave a hug to all the volunteers. And then he takes his his daughter, my aunt, with him, and she was 7 years old. And Baba gives them both a hug, and he tells my grandfather that my nazar is on you, in the sense my eyes are on you. And he tells my aunt, who is 7 at the time, that remember me when you wake up in the morning, at 12 in the afternoon, and before you go to bed. So that she did throughout her life. And that's how the story started. And after that, I want to cut it short. And after that, my grandfather was posted back to Hyderabad. Secunderabad, actually. The twin cities, Hyderabad and Secunderabad. And my grandmother also, who's actually, it started with her really, but I missed that part of the story. But anyway, after that, they come to Secunderabad, and before they leave Ahmednagar, both were worried that they're leaving, Ahmednagar now that they know Meher Baba. And Baba comes into the dream of my grandmother, and he says, wherever you go, set up my center. And that's exactly what they do. And from 1960s onwards, they had set up a center in Secunderabad. And And I was born instantly in Ahmednagar in 59. But yet my story is so close and so far. I haven't had Baba's darshan. And so I slid into Baba circle in the sense that after I was born, by this time my grandfather already is in touch with Meher Baba. And during my childhood, because my grandfather started the center, there'll be prayers every Saturday. And then I would, as a child, I would go there and spend time. We used to love the songs people used to sing. And we sit for the song, and then the moment somebody picks up a book to read, and we all rush out and play outside, and we exactly time it. Know when they're going to sing Aarti, because what's going to follow after Aarti is Prasad. And we would love that, those sweets that they give. So that used to be the trend during my childhood days, and that's how it started. But my really coming to Baba, I mean, so this prayers, going to prayers and running out when somebody picks up a book to read about Baba used to happen for quite a number of years. But my real coming to Baba was when I was booted out of my job in India. And losing a job in India is not a known thing during those days. And this is a government job. You can't lose a public sector job that easily. But there were circumstances where I think I cheated along with a bunch of other guys. But the other guys were lucky or unlucky, I don't know. But I got lucky because coming out of that really helped me to get into Baba more easily. And during that time, after I lost my job, one day my brother and I went to Mononash Cave in Hyderabad. And then, and without even thinking, Shailaja also came by the time I'm married and that kind of thing. So we went into the cave, and I don't know what happened, but just all of a sudden tears started rolling, and that kind of experience happened. I never saw Baba or see anything extraordinary, but just that this thing happened. And I think in my case, that was a moment when things really started rolling in a personal sense. And after that, it's my younger brother actually during that time, who is actually my real guru at home. He was lucky. He had Baba's kiss in 1962. We had a big family, five kids. And my mother and my father could not afford to take all of us there. But my younger brother being small, my mother would always carry him with her. And my grandfather said, okay, why don't you come with me to my mother? And my mother said, yes, I will. But, and then she decided to take the little one, who was 9 months old at the time, my younger brother. And she left the rest of us here and there at different places, at different relatives' places. And she took him there, and she had Baba's darshan. She touches his feet and puts a kid by his side. And after taking his darshan, she just picks the kid up and then starts walking away without realizing that he also has to touch Baba's feet. And after walking a few steps, Erich calls her back saying, Bahanji, Baba bula rahe hain, meaning that sister, Baba is calling you. And then Baba says, give me the child. And then he takes a kid, gives him a kiss, and then hands him back. And this little brother of mine, who is 2 years younger to me, is the one who gave me Listen Humanity. He was more into Baba than me, honestly. And then he gave me that book, and that was my beautiful starting book to develop that relationship with Baba more personally. That's how it started. And here I am with all of you beautiful people with beautiful stories. And I should tell you, the Zoom really picked things up and then sped up things in a big way. And meeting all of you has been a blessing to me.
Prakash, you're named after your grandfather, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And is it right that
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it right that Baba said that 7 generations of your grandfather are blessed?
I mean, that's what I believe he told. And my grandmother shared that with some people. And that's, I mean, this is something I heard too. I mean, but I cannot fully confirm it. But that's right. And apparently Baba mentioned that 7 generations of yours are blessed. And I'm counting, I'm still within the 7. So thanks so much. Yeah, so.
What was the book you were?
Jeff
and there's one thing. Sorry.
What was the book you were given again?
Listen, Humanity.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And one thing I really wanted to mention, I feel I was part of a beautiful family. My grandfather, my grandmother, all my uncles have seen Baba. And in that way, I'm really blessed. But one special thing which I thought I should mention was this aunt who had Baba's darshan in 58, who was remembering Baba constantly. And she passed away at the age of 18. and later, recently, in about when the memorial tower was set up, somebody mentioned, we saw your aunt's name there. And we didn't know till that time. And we all went and took a look, and her name was inscribed on memorial tower. I feel blessed to be part of that family.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there were only, what, a couple hundred that was, Baba had that tower created for his departed lovers.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another story too with Billy Ward was working in the archives, and suddenly they came across a letter, and it was from a town near Billy's town, and it was from his aunt to Baba. She'd been writing to Baba. He didn't know that this aunt, they all thought that she was a bit crazy and she was a bit spiritual, but he didn't know his aunt had been writing to Baba, and Baba was counseling her about her mental health issues, and finally she decided not to hold on to her body, but she's on the memorial tower.
Really? Oh my God.
Billy Ward really passed out in shock.
Yeah. I think Bill LePage was very surprised to see I think his father was on there, you know.
Yeah, his father and Moss, I believe, yeah.
A lot of people didn't know until, you know, the names actually came out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Jeff, I just wanted to
yeah,
tell a story, but just to say this has been so beautiful. I've been listening and cooking. It's like the East-West Darshan.
Yeah. No, this is great. And we can do this anytime, you know, anybody that, but I think let's have a, you know, why don't we stop here?
Can I just ask a question, Jeff?
Yeah.
Where do you see the list of those people on the tower? Where can you find that list?
AMBPPCT has the list.
Sorry, Raine?
AMBPPCT on the
has the list. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I might see someone I know.
Yeah, your aunt might be on there.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's also in Lord Mayhare, there was an earlier list that I think was during the New Life, kind of toward the New Life, that toward the end of the New Life, that Baba first started compiling some of the names. Oh, I think Darwin Shaw's father was on there. Was a great surprise.
Rick's mother. I think when Mani compiled one of the lists, she was about to step over the threshold out of Mandalay Hall, and Baba snapped his fingers and went, "Oh, we forgot Dondi, my ayah. We forgot my ayah. Put Dondi's name on there. She must go on the memorial tower."
Beautiful. I'm going to read. I'm going to read one last thing here, and then we'll have a few moments of silence. This is I guess to say a version of Hafiz by Daniel Ladinsky. But I think he captures something very, very, I really, I love the sentiment in this. It's called Perfect Equanimity. Look how a mirror will reflect with perfect equanimity all actions before it. There is no act in this world that will ever cause the mirror to look away. There is no act in this world that will ever make the mirror say no. The mirror, like perfect love, will just keep giving of itself to all before it. How did the mirror ever get like that? So polite, so grand, so compassionate. Yes, the mirror remembers the beloved. It watched God. Yes, the mirror remembers the beloved looking into itself as the beloved shaped existence's heart and the mirror's soul. My eye has the nature of God. Hafiz looks upon all with perfect equanimity. My poems will never tell you no, because the mirror is not like that. And if God ever hits you with a don't, he has his fingers crossed. He's just fibbing for your own good. That's the line. My poems will never tell you no, because the mirror is not like that. And if God ever hits you with a don't, he has his fingers crossed. He's just fibbing for your own good. Okay, let's have a few moments of silence. Jai Baba. That was really very touching, beautiful. We have enough stories here that we could kill time for 700 years. We just kind of keep running new people in here.
That's right.
Yeah. So keep, you know, we got to a few people, and not only that, I mean, there's your story, but then there are Baba stories that kind of flow out of your own Baba story. But that was just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. It was very
Yeah.
deep. Thank you.
And let's get Nasreen to.
Yeah.
She's the bouncer at this tavern.
Sure, I'm ready. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Jai Baba, Jai Baba.
Avatar Meher Baba
Jai
Ki
Baba.
Jai.
That was
Avatar Meher
wonderful.
Baba.
Thank you. Jai Baba.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. It was just
Beautiful.
great, beautiful stories.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Wonderful.